Halo 12 released, the same day a new game in the Ace Attorney series released, but I totally forgot that it existed in the hype surrounding Neo The World Ends With You. Now, I do like the Ace Attorney series. I prefer the formula and gameplay of Danganronpa more, but I did play the original trilogy of Ace Attorney games, and I thought they were really cool. So I wanted to give this game a try, since the Apollo Justice Collection isn't out yet. So this is my experience playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Enjoy! By the way, I'm going to treat this playthrough like I did the Raincoat series and show you the whole mystery so you can solve it alongside me. So if you get sections of the video where I am talking but I am just reading the dialogue, that is why. Give you a chance. A test to become a specially certified lawyer. Your timing is perfect, in fact. There's an apt trial to begin later today. No advocate has been appointed to the defense as yet, so this will be welcome news. If you manage to secure a verdict of not guilty, you'll have passed my test. Okay, even if he's not the murderer, he's a rich person, and eat the rich. So, I think we should secure a guilty verdict for him anyway. Rich people are watching this, that's a joke. If Jeffrey Bezos is watching this, that's a joke. What the fuck? The prosecutor is a vampire? The willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm sure I hardly need to remind you that you 6 members of the public have been selected for your impartiality. Are you ready to proceed? Oh, he's got a fucking jury of his peers, bro? There's a full-ass jury? Yes, to where? The incident took place in the late evening. 3 days had passed. The hour was some minutes after 10. The victim was a maker of building bricks, known in the community as thrice-fried mason. The victim's corpse was discovered in an omnibus in service of the streets of London at the time. A dagger had been thrust into the victim's abdomen, is believed to be the ultimate cause of death. And one further item of evidence, the prosecution would like to submit these as well. And these are... Good lord, is that blood, Mr. Cancel? Yes, my lord, seized by a policeman who arrived at the scene. These gore-soaked gloves, they're taken from the hands of the defendant. According to the driver of the omnibus, there were only 2 passengers traveling in his vehicle at the time. There were only 2. Obviously, one of those passengers was the deceased brickmaker, Mr. Mason. The other was the accused, Magnus McGill. Moving. So that's an omnibus. The omnibus. I can't believe they could bring something so enormous in here. Great Britain's courtrooms are amazing. As you can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and can carry up to 8 passengers. Four passengers seated inside the old closed cabinet and 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows that the best views of the city's architecture and sights are to be had from the top of the omnibus. And I should point out to our foreign guests that there is a skylight in the roof, allowing a view from the interior from the seats above. The penny drops at last, I see. These 2 gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats in the omnibus when these murders took place. That is how they came to witness the grim incident, through the skylight. But the victim and the man accused of killing him were sitting next to each other in the bus. Next to each other? Then how was he stabbed like this? Perhaps you could just tell us what you saw in a little more detail if that's... My lord! What is it, juror number 3? What is the meaning of this? My mind is made up, my lord. Completely and utterly made up. I don't like the stinking rich. Never have. Based! There's always up to something or other that they shouldn't be. Every one of them. Based! And that little leprechaun of a man is no exception. Well, he can't fool me. Let me see. Ah, yes, it seems that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts. White for innocent and black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one they each cast a ball of fire in the great scales of justice. So if those enormous scales fall completely to the black side, that means... Let's do our best to make sure that it doesn't happen. Considerable size, Council. It is, and furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. Magnus, perhaps? Or McGilded, possibly. Take your pick. Both come from. Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls. Stole the crows! Mr. Guild lends money at extortionate rates of interest, so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they own. Who's Magnus McGilded? But let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed, was the final repayment date for his debts. This is the debtor's ledger, in which details all monies loaned by the accused. In it, you will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside. Look at this. Do you see this name here? Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually. Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment. All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement on this case. Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of the country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections. Mrs. Otto, just tell me one thing. What does that footnote say? You were in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What did it say next? When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended, and the presiding judge will deliver his final verdict and sentence. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point. Very carefully to what each member of the jury says, and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, we then contrast the statement and pit the opposing jurors against each other. So it's your turn to die! No. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus that night in question, and according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right, I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. 4 passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication, it would be 16. Exactly. As I said, it just doesn't add up. The figures are different, by 4 pence in fact. Or precisely 1 person's fare. In other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there's another passenger we've heard nothing about. How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Want to test me, would you? It was like this, suck the fellow next to him without even getting up. Just like the prim banker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony, quite true. Now then, juror number 6. How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was this. He stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas. Not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say? Well, what of it? Let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your debt in that case? These documents say that the loan agreement is forged between the 2 individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist. Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to see something you never got far in a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant? They must have been sitting back here, so... Here, right?
Take that!
I'm sure you'll be wanting to know why I said nothing when I was taken in by the police. I do be having a very good reason, I assure you. Well, the little child was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and not in any way involved, you see. If the police had known the wee one was there, they would assume she'd done it. They'd have hauled her into this here courtroom just like myself, disregarded by the court. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the urchin isn't even in this courtroom as we speak, listening to the proceedings. What? Be careful, Mr. Naruhodo. Cover your face. Bailiff, don't let the accused escape. Secure the omnibus. Evidence to support your adulterated theory? Both of them, they claim to have heard a loud thud, such as the noise made by someone falling to the floor. Yes, which has already been explained as the sound of the victim falling from a seat after being assaulted by the dagger. Would a man slipping from the seat onto the floor really made of such a loud noise as the witnesses describe? A noise loud enough to cause Miss Lestrade to let out an involuntary cry, in fact. But let me rephrase that. The victim didn't enter the cabin as such. He
Objection!
Fell into it. To be sure now, the two fellows who were sat on the roof that testified before said nothing of the victim falling through the skylight. But it seems to me, my lord, that 'tis not so much of a case of them not saying, but... Aye. It's a case of them being unable to say. I think perhaps the two fellows do we have some compelling reason not to mention what happened. Wouldn't you not agree, members of the jury? Are both the killers. I do think McGilded needs to go to jail for crimes. He's eat the rich. Witnesses share no common dealings. Well, I don't trust cop. This guy's based. Juror number 3 is my favorite character.
Got it!
By Jupiter, is that blood? This blood scene proves two things. Firstly, when the incident occurred, the skylight of the omnibus was open. Secondly, the victim was already bleeding when he fell through the opening. And so it follows that Mr. McGilded, who was inside the enclosed cabin at the time, cannot possibly be guilty of this crime for an extremely simple reason. That smear of blood never existed.
Objection!
I personally attended. The officers went over the carriage with a fine-tooth comb. So I can say with absolute surety, no such smear of blood existed in the carriage, at least not until this trial began. Mr. McGilded, I realize this is your first appearance in court as the accused. However, I am well aware of your involvement behind the scenes in a great many affairs of dubious nature. You're very adept when it comes to avoiding getting your own hands dirty. And each time it happens that a case you're involved in is investigated, you adapt to the facts. When you wield a fortune the size of Mr. McGilded, however ill-gotten it may be, nothing is impossible. Tampering with evidence, manipulating the scene of a crime, bribing witnesses. The defendant did as my learned friend suggests. However, in terms of having the opportunity to carry out the alleged tampering, there's one possibility. The bailiff? Yes, there is. It seems my Lord Nivini's friend has no intention of running from this deceit. I'm sure everyone still remembers clearly the recess that we were forced to take. As a result, the room was filled with smoke, and everyone was thrown into confusion. All of us were made to leave this chamber. In that brief interval, under the veil of smoke and in all the chaos, it could have been possible to steal inside the omnibus. over. I've done everything I possibly can to cooperate with the court, but 'tis all over now. 'Tis over, I tell ye! Memory, recollection, what people think they saw, 'tis all a nonsense. Fact is what counts, and the fact is that bloodstain is there now! And over the course of this desperate trial, long and extremely drawn out as it been, that good-for-nothing Reaper de Bailius failed to present any decisive evidence at all. He's not wrong. I'm scandalized, I am. I thought better of Lord Van Zieks. Well, my lord? I must concur with the defendant. The unaffirmed recollections of an individual cannot stand as evidence. At this moment in time, the particular bloodstain in question is very much in existence, and the absence of any credible method in which to prove its previous non-existence. I regret to say it would be improper for this trial to continue. Lord Van Zieks, what is your position? The prosecution, my lord, has no further witnesses or evidence to present. Very well. In that case, as I believe we explored every possible avenue in this matter, I shall proceed to my adjudication. As for formality, I am of course obliged to confirm with the defense first. What formality? I think that Mr. McGilded will be found not guilty, which would mean we've won. Is that really the right outcome here? Is it really alright for the trial to come to an end now with all these unexplained inconsistencies? Counsel for the defense, your closing statement, please. Yes, my lord. The defense believes... Like, 2-5! I love 2-4! I love this! This is like Farewell My Turnabout! We win! Yay! Oh, there you are. What?
What's going on? Get the fire brigade! Water! Bring water, quick!
Oh! They set fire to the...
I don't know, sir. By the time I got here, it was already engulfed.
No one was supposed to be allowed in here before we started investigating. No. Oh, good God. There's someone in there.
Santa Claus!
Oh. This can't be.
And Edgeworth is just standing there like, what? I fucking told you. No, hold on. It's just that I never managed to ascertain the truth, and then the trial ended. Well, you needn't let it trouble you for a second longer. What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? Magnus McGilded passed away immediately following the trial. I have 19 minutes and 41 seconds until my next engagement. Time enough to talk. I don't understand. What happened? How could he be dead? After the trial concluded yesterday, there was a great commotion in the Old Bailey. As you presumably recall, an omnibus had been wheeled into a courtroom. Yes, that was the scene of the crime that Mr. McGilded had been accused of. Well, while the bailiff's attention were diverted by some other matter, the omnibus went up in flames. That is being investigated as we speak, but already the police have identified a corpse found in the inside charred shell of the carriage as that of Mr. McGilded. The man must have slipped inside whilst the bailiff's attention was elsewhere. The case was so incriminating, I was stunned when I first heard them. In fact, I'm hard to believe that we maybe managed to get a favorable verdict. Is something funny? No, my apologies. Okay, so this guy's definitely evil, right? A young woman was walking the pavement on Briar Road when she was stabbed from behind. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal, but she's still laid up in the hospital. What happened to that bloke in the end, eh? He's dead. Magnus McGilded came a cropper in that omnibus when it went up in flames. So you can't rightfully say you saved the defendant, can you? Look, if Van Zies could get the dirt to stick on everyone, he'd be a miracle worker. But that's not how it goes. He doesn't work miracles, he works magic. Black magic. I'd have a good long think about that if I were you. Are you saying that he got him killed? Right, well, I filled you in as I requested, and I'm very nearly out of chips. So I'm gonna be headed back to the... Oh, right, they call fries chips in Britain because they're fucking weird. They're hearing the sweet, sentimental tones of a compatriot's voice, and hearing this damp, dark hellhole was a most momentally moving moment. What? It was an accursed evening after the fog had started to clear and was heavy with fog. What? I had been to the bookshop to buy my books, and I was on my way back to my accursed belongings. As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me, a woman wearing a green overcoat, and just as I went to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed on the cold hard slabs of stone on my feet. What is he doing? I called out to the woman, but she doesn't move. It was like a ghostly, ghoulish, grim graveyard. Slight exaggeration there, perhaps. Time it happened, who else did you see nearby? Did anybody pass you? Regrettably, apart from myself and the woman, I didn't see a soul. So the victim was unknown to you, and there was nobody else on the street at the time. What I was thinking was, how did Suzuki-san actually come to be arrested? He didn't touch the victim, and there was nobody at the scene to see him. So how did the police ever discover that he was there in the first place? It was him. That accursed great detective. He led the police to me. Of all the bad luck. Accursed great detective. Could it be? I shall never forget that man's name as long as I live, with his haughty laugh and his self-proclaimed greatness. Brash, big-headed, busybody begone. May he be cursed to the end of the day, Hairlock Sholmes. After that nightmare unfolded, that means we get to see the best character again. Yay, I missed him. Right? That's just my point. Yes, the young woman was stabbed, but it didn't kill her. Couldn't even say the intent was there. How is it not attempted murder if you stab someone? What else do you want to do when you stab someone in the back? Like, what other intention would there be? Did you notice anything else out of the ordinary then? Such as... anything at all, even if it seems unrelated. Well... was there something then? Well, it's nothing particularly significant, but at around that sort of time here and there... For the love of God, Joan, watch what you're doing! Oh, dear me, what have I done? Of course, sir. If I may, Mr. Naruhodo. Hello? I have exceedingly good memory, as far as I can remember, nothing of any significance took place here at that hour. Nothing at all. She's pouring the thing to wipe him of his memory, the way you were talking before. Oh, that's a good kitty. That's a good kitty. Well, I wouldn't like to speculate which is closer to the truth. What? When did he get there? He literally was not there a second ago. What? What the fuck are you doing here? Are we doing the thing? Know that wild beasts are not easily tamed, so... shall we begin? Once again, Herlock Sholmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. Oh boy. He's my favorite character. The fearsome beast which ran amok in this room was an Indian lion. And with a simple visit to the circus now, we'll review the lion prancing jubilantly through a ring of fire. He is so stupid. I love him. Worked into a frenzy by hunger, the lion attacked and ate the carpet. The teeth marks on the carpet are a perfect match with those of a lion I once saw in India. What? Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this beastly puzzle. What's this photograph? It appears to be Mr. Gardiev's wedding. He looks very happy, doesn't he? Yes, but you can't make out his bride. The beast was his bride, his ex-wife. The true nature of that beast is run rampant. He's such a nerd. He's like, is revealed by that newlywed bride. Maid. No. You are Mr. Garriev's lucky bride. You are Mrs. Garriev herself. Oh my word! Oh, you have a mark on the cheek. 'Cause it hurts. You've been... We need to call the cops for like some domestic abuse or some shit. I don't think this is a bookmark. It's a note written in a woman's hand. Oh, James, I love you. Yours, Mary. Oh, this guy... Okay, this guy's so fucked. This family is dysfunctional. This is a divorce waiting to happen. Mrs. Garriev's mighty arms and muscles left an impression not only on her husband's face. Calling, someone is calling. But on the entire room, the force of the strike caused a candle to fall from the ladder. And in seconds, the carpet was alight, and the whole corner of the room in flames. Yes, for a most ferocious beast in this world, it is neither no violent lion or vengeful woman, but fire. None to you. Why does he look like that? Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, Inspector? Well, if I must, I'll have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop is this place, Bourbon Books. He didn't buy his books from Bourbon Books. If the defendant had been returning from Bourbon Books, then yes, he almost certainly would have passed the place Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take account the fact he was actually at another bookshop, Your Books, it may be very well turn out that he wouldn't have passed that location at all. My Lord Nifty's friend is obviously in training to be a clown with the way he regales us with such witticisms. You are not the clown, you are the entire circus. To your future career in the circus. I didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming home from Your Books instead of Bourbon Books, there's no doubt he still would have passed the place where the victim was stabbed. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from Your Books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the route suggested by the prosecution. However, that isn't the only conceivable route to take between the two places. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location where the victim was attacked. Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, I suppose. I feel like they know the Miles Edgeworth clown memes, right? However, I feel compelled to point out that route is commonly referred to as the long way around. Well, I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and donked my head. You're wearing green. Of his return journey. What he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes.
Objection!
Can we really be sure of that, madam? I'm sure you heard in juror number 6 account of what happened to him that day. We're so lucky that he was selected as one of the jurors. That same afternoon, there was someone who was wearing a green overcoat who fell over on the icy streets of the neighborhood. My goodness, you mean... That's right. I'm referring, of course, to hard of hearing juror number 6. They visited this bookshop to purchase a number of secondhand books. And on that same day, we now know that there were works being carried on Meerschaum Street, making it impassable, which means that the defendant's home would have been blocked. A distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Would you not agree, my stalwart friend? So you're saying that there were 4 books, right? That's right, I remember all of them. The Picture of Monsieur Somebody, What's It Yearnings, A Meal for Someone, and The Thigamy Something. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat, but there's a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. But Natsume only bought 3 books, meaning, I don't believe it. Lion, Gardieb. Oh, look at this. The book has been badly burnt. You'd never be able to read in this state, especially not the latter pages. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, the damage must have occurred very recently. Because when did the victim have time to burn it? The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodgings, a certain Mr. and Mrs. Gardieb. When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open that window? On the day in question, did or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride he had been reading? I could smell it then, you know, that god-awful stench of the flames. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks alright that night, I tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? Why is there so much fucking domestic abuse in this game? Misogyny in my video game? Demonstrated that the 4th book, The Lion's Pride, was found at the scene of the crime that originated in Mr. Gardieb's floor, on the top floor of the house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Gardieb household to the street below. Are you going to add that to the court record? Juror number 4, Miss Gardieb. I must apologize in advance for this, but I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Find it, Mr. Naruto. Cast your mind back to the windows of Mr. and Mr. Gardieb's room. So the window opens to allow air inside to circulate inside the house. But it's a top-tinged casement window, and it swings open along the upper edge. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar that prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. Absolutely correct, sir. If the book would have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fell straight down to the pavement below. You see the problem then? Good, your education in Windows is complete. Think about it. Besides Mr. Bouquet, there's also Mr. Gardieb's book. Mr. Gardieb's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out of the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here, on the west side of the street, and yet it was actually found here, on the opposite side of the road, in the victim's hand. I think what happened was she killed him and Rolly tried to frame Mr. Guardian for it. They were in on it together. Rolly was trying to cover it up. In fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of their house. There's no logical explanation for those things unless someone deliberately moved them. Put a London fog on the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid. That was actually on the west side of Briar Road. Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent while sending you for help, and during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print, the victim herself, the 4 books, everything to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road. But the constable overlooked one thing. The bouquet, I presume? The incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done? It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. The criminal could be lurking somewhere. As we ran over the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We'd got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then it dawned on me. I realized we were where the victim was lying and what that meant for me. Why here? Why did this have to happen here? And why tonight of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box to fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then when I opened my mouth to speak, it just came out. I couldn't believe it. This doesn't change the culprit, though. Oh wait, you dropped the knife into her back. It's now possible for the knife that flew out the window to have hit her, since it was on his... It looks to be a sorry state with that bandage around it, does it? But for some reason it feels slightly ominous, like it's trying to shout out a warning. Perhaps because it's the same blue as Mrs. Guardian's dressing gown. It could have considerable sentimental value to him, seeing as he's gone to the trouble to repair it, or he can't afford to replace it. What? The knife was missing a tip. So get her on attempted murder and then accidental injury. However, the knife missed Mr. Guardian, instead of striking the pipe. So we could add an attempted murder charge to her rap sheet. Because right now she's only has accidental injury of the person, right? Like, it was a total accident. But now we can add attempted murder. And that's when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Guardian's pipe before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife had struck her, had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself in the victim's back. Evidence. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Guardian's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we need to consider how it came to be at the scene of the crime. The photographic print shows the victim holding it in her hand. She bent over to pick up the book. So first the book fell.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Let's go. Not guilty. Can Van Zeeks not call for a summation examination? No, they can't. With that episode of The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles finished, I'll see you next time.